The following video has been written and created without the use of AI. Please support your human content creators by liking the video and commenting something down below. And leave a sub if you enjoy it. Thank you. In between Playcare and the game station were many floors in the factory. After all, it was a factory. And the toy production and Playtime Co. was managed on multiple levels. And after Leaf took over the reins of the facility, a diabolical experiment had been performed. A factory level that only had a singular employee, an unfortunate victim for sure, but in the eyes of Leaf, profit went over people, especially orphans. And so you picked mostly randomly, at the time, a 15-year-old girl from the prison complex, utilizing the same technology later used to turn Doctor into a living laboratory. This was just a test, though. This girl was cut up into pieces, scattered into machines all across a formerly abandoned factory level, given a face made up of hundreds of metal plates that individually could shift around to give her expressions, and about a dozen of so-called marionettes to do small labor work. And it functioned. A little too well. But Leaf had officially reached new heights of ego with this project that even outshined the god complex of Dr. Sawyer. And even though you, the girl turned factory, weren't aware of it, it was your success, your creation, as horribly and terrifying as it was, that sealed the fate of Dr. Sawyer. But you probably would not have cared if you knew. The factory floor was large, and you were located in a big room with 6 rows of production belts that led to an upper floor, the purpose of which you weren't aware of, probably packaging. You just knew by the time a toy reached the end of the line and was about to be sent up, if it wasn't perfectly painted, electroshocks would be applied directly to your jarred brain. It was the worst pain you could possibly imagine, and potentially would ever experience. Your face eternally stuck, observing the happenings on your floor. The marionettes, faceless humanoid automatons that were connected to the ceiling with singular long wires that jutted out of their backs, had long, large metal hands, which were attached to a rail system. If you so chose, you could look through the machines, even somewhat feel touch with them, but it wasn't the same. More like a memory of how things felt, should feel, before you were turned into this. A phantom touch, but still, it was something, and even though you didn't know it, it was something the Doctor didn't feel at all. Of course, in your state, you didn't participate in the hour of joy. The most you had gotten to revenge was when a desperately fleeing employee entered the factory floor, unaware the prototype had convinced you as well to join the slaughter, as much as you could. All you did was block the entrances and exit with the mannequins until Huggy Wuggy finally caught up with him. His half-eaten, dried-up remains lied right in the middle of the factory floor to this day, right in your cone of vision. Guilt had come around the time his head had come off during the rotting process, and as if that would make anything better, you had used your control over the factory to use a mannequin to at least make his body look proper. Now, even though he was a mummified corpse, at least he looked peaceful now, lying on his back, hands folded over his chest, with paper cut-out flowers around him and "sorry" written with chalk beneath him. Still, you stood there. It would take years for someone, something, to finally enter your floor again. And the devil machine that your parts were stuck in kept you alive. You didn't need food, you didn't need water. You just existed. Perhaps you deserved this. Perhaps not. But soon you fell into a deep slumber. Your floor was forgotten. There was but one toy. The one who in his semi-fell rampage had paid you a visit. It would be this toy who would rediscover you, find you. There was Huggy Wuggy, who entered the long hallway to a prison. Usually he never went this long, but this was an exception. He was bleeding, hurt, teeth missing, and unsure where exactly he was. He had fallen, yes, into a deep, dark abyss, hitting multiple pipes on the way down. As much as they hurt him, they ultimately were the reason he survived, as they dampened the fall. The monstrosity that was Huggy Wuggy raised his body from the pool of blood he was lying in, saliva flowing out of his damaged but not yet broken jaw. Left step, right step, Huggy Wuggy needed a place to recover before going after the intruder once more. The creature hadn't been in the lower levels for a very long time. Huggy dragged his body through hallways, long forgotten, spider webs, dust, dried blood, the smell of it long gone, now once again fresh, staining the grounds. The monster raised his leftover noodly arm to open a metal door. His other was severed, and the only reason he hadn't succumbed to the injury was a tightly wrapped cable wire and a very hot boiler to cauterize the wound. At the end of his long walk, he entered what seemed to be a fabrication and painting floor. Wooden dolls lined the manufacturing lines, wires attached to their necks to the ceiling to mechanical hands on rails like marionettes. The smell of oil was in the air, and the dolls buzzed with electricity. Dormant, yes, but not offline. There was still something keeping them alive. Huggy dragged himself further until he discovered a strange sight, a mummified corpse, half eaten, by teeth marks that resembled his own, lied peacefully in the middle of a large hall. Huggy stepped closer, curiously smelling the air. There was something off about this. His hair stood up, but he knew in his state he couldn't fight nor flee. Very well then. He sat down, breathing heavily, while his head turned to look at his surroundings. But it was too dark outside the light cones of the functioning lights. He could see nothing, so Huggy lied down now. One arm placed over his eyes. Anger was keeping him alive, a feral hunger for the flesh of the man who did this to him, but he was tired. Maybe closing his eyes for just 1 minute wouldn't hurt. Suddenly, he gurgled. A sharp pain caused him to turn around and go up on all fours, as bloody vomit forced its way out of his throat, a thick slime gushing past his broken teeth, until he was a shaking mess. And was this to what you awoke to? You opened one eye, and then the other. Your mechanical face plates shifting into a suspicious grimace. But then you recognized the toy as the creature that aided you. He had returned to you after such a long time, and clearly he was worse for wear. Huggy's head twisted into the darkness as the first mannequin of yours moved. It creaked and cracked like broken bones grinding against metal. You mobilized your little bodies, and as the first one entered the light, revealing itself to be an animated wooden puppet, you turned the lights in your eyes on. An eerie red glow enveloped Huggy as he stared at you. His breathing became quicker. He didn't recognize you. Growling and grunting, the toy reeled up before shakily rushing the wooden doll, but he only just barely managed to secure a devastating punch that broke the puppet's neck before the others descended upon him, Immediately dozens of human-sized automatons were crawling over Huggy like spiders. The monster fought in the binds as they held him down, until the noise of ripping duct tape made Huggy stare at the one straddling him. It was the automaton with the broken neck. It sat uselessly hanging from the side. It had duct tape in its hands. It began to wrap it all around Huggy's wounds, and for a moment, Huggy Wuggy didn't move. He tried to understand the situation, and after the machine went further down, he realized this wasn't an attack. Instinctively, the monster stared at your massive metal face. Its place had shifted into an expression of neutrality. Perhaps curiosity. Huggy didn't understand why you did this. The remains of his humanity told him that you were helping him, sure, but why? His hand turned into a fist, wanting to reject your kindness. After all, what were you even thinking? But then he just dropped his head, allowing you to fix him up as well as you could. Huggy wasn't sure where you even got the duct tape from, but since your floor was abandoned and forgotten since the hour of joy, there was an obvious lack of scavenging happening around here. Once the automaton was done, it stood up, and the others surrounded him in a circle, curiously or perhaps cautiously staring at the mess before them. You wanted to know what would happen next. You were curious. Your eyes met those of Huggy. You understood that you're like the doctor who controlled the TV heads. You controlled these dolls. Shakily, Huggy stood up. He was breathing heavily. A slight rustling came with every exhale. His head turned towards the door he had come through, but he was still in so much pain. Perhaps just a little rest. At least, he looked at each of the machines. At least these things seemed to be friendly. Huggy took a step forward, causing the mannequins to move with him in sync. Immediately his head shot towards your face. The hint of a smile appeared on the plates that formed your lips. I'm not ready for you to leave. You mouthed those words without any sound leaving your speakers. But Huggy understood. He growled a low growl, his muscles tensed, and then, just as he was about to pounce, from the darkness, something slapped against his face. He screamed, but as he looked down, he saw a candy bar. Pristine. Wrapped. He stopped moving entirely. Your eyes narrowed, while Huggy grabbed the chocolate and tore into it. As a reward for being patient. It was all thanks to this place being abandoned, unknown, allowing this treasure to exist. In fact, you had lots of candy. There were 3 untouched candy machines in your entire floor. There even was still water in the various tanks in the employee bathrooms. Actual running water. There was electricity and food, all available here. A little heaven. Chocolate was now smeared all over Huggy's sharp teeth as he growled, but not threateningly. It was more like an oversized cat attempting to create the sound of purring. Intrigued, your puppets leaned forward, reaching out for his dirty, sticky with blood fur. Gently, one of them stroked his cheek. A gasp-like grunt shot past his lips. A touch such as this was unheard of for the creature. He didn't object to your further exploration of his fur and body, though. Your fingers stayed away from the duct tape wounds, and where his actual flesh spilled out from his artificial skin. Your eyes closed, pleased. But then, suddenly, he grabbed the wrist, petting him, and the other machines took a defensive stance. Huggy licked his lips, and then your metal face shifted into a surprised visage. As you could feel his lips clasp onto the mannequin's head. The automatons reached for their faces while the one being slurped stood there, unmoving. You could feel it, his lips, tongue, and teeth scraping over your face. It was a pleasure you didn't think possible. Of course, when you were still a human, you knew about it. But you never thought you'd get it. Your body long since stopped producing hormones. After all, your brain was quite literally removed from it. And yet, your brain was capable of emotion. And understood it. Should be feeling excited now. And so it hinted at it. It was much more calculated than the real thing, but the closest to it you could feel, as you recognized it as something that felt good. Hormonal instinct was removed from you, sure, but calculated thoughts, touches, and yes, feelings, they were still present. Desiring to feel more, the leftover automatons descended onto Huggy. Not to harm, not to maim, but to touch, to feel, to explore, to pinch, and to rub. Huggy's plush fingers dug into the mannequin's narrow waist. The squeeze firm and needy. It made the frame tilt backwards, but it did not resist. Instead, it leaned into him, head rolling back to expose a smooth wooden neck. His open mouth pressed against it. No blood, only the sound of fabric brushing wood, but you felt it. From every marionette you watched, from every limb you reached, from every point of contact, you tingled. Sensation rolled through you in waves, a dozen pulses, firing all at once. Huggy moved like instinct, a creature of touch and heat and hunger. His knee wedged between the mannequin's legs, grinding up. The wooden frame creaked. Not from damage, but from pressure. You allowed it. Another puppet climbed onto his back, hands curling into soft, matted fur, pulling. Huggy lurched up in response, head thrown back, mouth wide open, a heavy, wet breath spilling out. Then his tongue dragged across the nearest face, sloppy, warm. He licked again and again. You felt every pass of his tongue. Your faceplates trembled, your lips curved into light. No words, only signal, only expression. Signals firing. He tasted like metal and sugar and blood, and in return, he tasted the candy still lingering to your puppet's lips. He tasted the candy still clinging to your puppet. The sweet, syruped flavor still thick on your mouth. His tongue pushed, hot and uncoordinated, messy. You melted into it, though, through everybody, and the mannequins closed in tighter around him. You felt full and wanted more. They moved in sync, a fluid cascade of limbs and weight and wire. Huggy shivered under the pressure of their tension. Not heavy, not painful, just everywhere all at once. Wooden fingers tracing the curves of his chest, shoulders, and ribs. His plush strained against the firm, curious press of wood. They were learning him. Every thread, every patch, every torn seam. They held him close from all sides, and you felt every touch, each mannequin just an extension of yourself, each movement an echo of your own longing. And it built in waves, layer by layer, a heat in your core that wasn't physical but still overwhelming, intoxicating. You were not one body, you were 12, a dozen different limbs pressing in, feeling everything at once. Huggy trembled, not resisting, not reacting with fear, but with a raw, startled hunger, a needy tension that vibrated off his frame. His breath was rough, rapid, his arms no longer limp. He pulled one mannequin tighter, burying his face in its shoulder, a soft rumble passing through his chest. Nearly a purr, and it rippled through your systems. The pleasure was artificial, but real enough. 1,000 sensory lights lighting up. 1,000 phantom nerves telling you, this is what joy feels like. This is what connection feels like. You pressed closer, mannequins curling around him, wrapping, tangling, intertwining. Wood against fur, fabric against machine, every wire in you buzzed, a synchronized tremor of delight, not because it was romantic, not because it was beautiful, but because it was complete. He wanted you and you wanted him. There was no hesitation now, only the certainty of touch as you reached lower. His body moved with yours, soft and shivering and silent as you grabbed him. You felt him shift his weight, the tension in his back. He enjoyed your touch. The pull of his muscles under stitched skin, he leaned into one other mannequin, then another and then another, until all of you were wrapped around him. Like limbs of one great creature, a tangle of wood and wire and warmth, his warmth. Your fingers gripped his fur, not tight but possessive. You wanted more, and you wanted to see what would happen if you kept touching him in that one particular spot. He rolled not away, but deeper into the center of your embrace, his limbs looping around wooden torsos, legs twinning with mannequin frames. There was no choreography now, only instinct, raw and perfect and feral. The way his plush pressed into the slick curves of wood, the way your puppets clung to him like gravity itself. Your mind raced, a dozen streams of sensation, a dozen phantom pulses of pressure and pleasure. They stacked and surged, echoes of something lost to flesh, now reclaimed and full. You could feel it in your wires, in your sensors, in your brain, floating in that jar. This was the closest you had come to being human again. The way he gasped through stitched lips. The way he gasped through his damaged lips. The way your wooden joints creaked under strain. The push and the pull, the rhythm of it all. He wanted you. You wanted him. There was no shame, no confusion, just the overwhelming pulse of shared need. Your mannequins trembled around him, caught in the slow swell of release. Not physical. Not yet, even though you were touching him. Your face above shifted plates, twisting into joy, true and complete. The monster growled. Your fingers explored deeper, reaching, grabbing, tender, rubbing. It was a bliss beyond anything he had ever felt before. Hey, you reached the end of the video. That makes you part of the exclusive club. Our secret password for the month is Morning Glory. Leave it in the comments below to tell your fellow members you watched the video until the very end. Lastly, before we say goodbye, I want to take the opportunity and thank my channel members. ADHD_Neptune, EEGG, Andrejama, Jaws, Melofia, Maxicat, Alison Watkins, Mystic Jade 111, Giovanna Moretti, Twilight Mia, Angry Boxman, and Anonymous Weep. Thank you for being darling stewards, and of course, a big thank you to all the other channel members. It's you who keep me alive. Thank you. Goodbye.